What was the worst field trip you ever went on in school? We went to the fire station in first grade. We were getting back on the bus, and as I was going up the steps to board the bus, the kid in front of me turned around and vomited all over me. My hair, my face, the front of my shirt, my shoes, covered in vomit. Had to spend the rest of the day at school and the walk home in vomit, hair and clothes. We went to a beach where horseshoe crabs mate. Hundreds and hundreds of horseshoe crabs, latched onto one another and jizzing in the 95-degree heat. The smell was unimaginable. Had the opportunity to do an overnight stay at a zoo once as a class trip, which included seeing all the animals after hours, feeding times, and getting to go into some of the enclosures to feed certain animals. Unfortunately, only 2 of us voted for that option. Everyone else voted to go see Jurassic Park 2 at the movies. I'm still bummed about not going to the zoo 25 years later. Actually, I'm going to revise that. Worst field trip was a trip we took for tourism class. We planned to do a high-wire rope course, abseiling and whitewater rafting. We went whitewater rafting first, and the rest of the trip was cancelled after a girl drowned. Several of us nearly drowned. Part of the class got swept away downstream and had to be rescued, while the rest of us had to pull our dead classmate out of the river and then continue down the river to the get-out point, all the while suffering hypothermia due to being out there for hours trying to get our classmate's body out while in soaking wet wetsuits. The rest of the day was spent smoking while trying to get warm and waiting to be interviewed by the cops. Second worst was 6 months later when our traumatized class was forced onto high-speed jet boats in extremely low water levels, when none of us felt comfortable going anywhere near a boat yet. Tutors told us to suck it up, get on the boat, or we'd fail the year. Trip to a fort. We had to look from the bus since they wouldn't allow us in and went back to school. Slaughterhouse to see how hot dogs are made. Elementary school, early 60s, Rapid City, South Dakota. Black Hills Packing was the company. No longer there. Condos or apartments there now. If cows and pigs had ghosts, that place would be haunted AF. Six Flags. All everyone wanted to do was shop and didn't want to ride any rides, so I rode them all by myself and nobody even realized I was gone. We went to the museum. It was a bodies exhibit, where they have actual human cadavers, and I remember 2 kids in my class fighting and knocking down a fetus jar. It didn't break, but our teacher was so pissed she just ended our tour and argued with us all the way back to school. My sister watched her friend suffocate and die in a pile of salt on a school trip to the salt processing plant. They let the kids climb on the mountains of salt and she hit a hollow spot and just fell in. Salt closed over her and they couldn't pull her out in time. How was the field trip? My friend died. I think they were in 5th grade. When I was in 6th grade, we made a trip to a hospital, on bicycles. Mine got a problem and I got left behind. One of the worst memories of my childhood. We went to a funeral home in elementary school. One kid passed out as the nice old creepy as fuck guy explained the embalming process as we all stood around the embalming table. I think it was the line "and the blood runs down these gutters" on the sides of the table that put the kid over the edge. I went to Memphis for an overnight trip in 5th grade. I caught a fever the night we got there and was deathly ill the entirety of the next day. I remember going to the Pink Palace and sitting on every single bench with my friends, waiting for everyone else to get through the exhibit. After that we went to a stop on the Underground Railroad where I almost certainly got my first migraine. Finally, on the bus home, I vomited all over one of the chaperones and the bus floor.
My Girl Scout troop went to the police station. It wasn't initially terrible, but they locked us in a cell and took pictures while the cell next to us actually had a lady that was arrested earlier. We heard a lot of curse words that day. I have a faint memory of her pissing herself as well.
In elementary school, we took a field trip to prison. I don't remember much, but it was very boring and we did a lot of walking. I do, for whatever reason, remember my teacher saying it always breaks my heart whenever I see one of my previous students here. I also remember some kids were actually scared to even be there. Not sure who thought it was a good idea, but I'd rate it a 3/10. We visited a rainforest at night. It was actually really cool, but I had recently lost weight due to a bad case of pneumonia, so my pants were loose. I bent over to pick up my backpack and accidentally flashed everyone in the middle of a forest under a full moon. Someone pointed out my round, pale ass perfectly matched the moon and I was called Moon Moon for the rest of the year. In 7th grade we went to see a nunnery. It was 3 hours of only praying and 20 minutes explaining why the nunnery existed. Most boring day of my life. In the 1st grade we went to the harbor and were supposed to learn about boats, I think. The weekend before the trip a whole hurricane came through and destroyed the entire boardwalk. We still went. The outer edge of the hurricane was still scudding over, everything was muddy and destroyed. Then we went to a museum about duck decoys. Which are cool examples of folk art and all, but they did absolutely nothing for a 7-year-old. I'd also like to nominate my being left behind in a darkened room of the Natural History Museum in DC. I think it was a dinosaur display? It was so terrifying. The second time I was left behind, Air and Space Museum, I was just like, ah shit, here we go again, movie theater field trip. Sounds pretty standard, right? We were gonna get to miss school for a day, and go see some movie in an empty theater before the doors officially opened to the public. It was gonna be great. So we get to the theater, and are escorted to the concession stand. We go to pull out our money to buy snacks, but are told that we're not allowed to buy our own snacks. No, we have to take what they've already prepared for us. What we get is a little kid's snack box, which includes what is probably half of a small popcorn, a small Pepsi, a fun-size M&Ms, and a fucking good and plenty. So everyone is pissed off already, but things are only going to get worse from here. We're led into the theater proper, which again is entirely empty because the place isn't open to the public yet. We start to walk up to the back of the theater, when we are stopped by our teachers. We are told that we have to sit in the front rows. We have the entire fucking theater to ourselves, and could get the best seats in the house, but no, we have to sit in the goddamn front with our necks tilted back all the way just to see the screen. And then the lights go out, and the movie starts. And the theater erupts into chaos. See, there's one other little problem I neglected to mention before. At no point were we told what movie we were going to see. Most of us didn't care at the time, since either way we were getting out of school. But once the movie started, we started to care. It looked to be some sort of 80s action cartoon movie. It heavily reminded me of He-Man, but I'm almost certain it wasn't actually He-Man. Keep in mind, we were middle schoolers in the early 2000s. There were any number of other, more recent movies they could have shown us, but for some crazy reason, they decided that the best thing they could show a group of already angry middle schoolers was some 80s cartoon film, and not even something good like a Disney film. We basically rioted. There was screaming, there was food being thrown, and even after the teachers finally managed to calm everyone down, literally nobody watched the movie. We all just sat and talked with each other, completely ignoring it. Within 10 minutes of the start of the film, the teachers just gave up and let us do whatever we wanted. The whole thing was a disaster, and I have no idea what they were thinking with that field trip.
2-night trip to Williamsburg, Virginia in 8th grade. Had my period and was in a hotel room with 3 other girls, and our toilet wasn't flushing properly. A teacher came to look at it, shrugged her shoulders and left. Not wanting to leave a bloody mess, I ended up either peeing in the bathtub or holding it until we got to wherever we were going. Pooping in the tub was out of the question. I'd sure as hell do it now though, so relief didn't happen until I got home. Then my bra strap broke in front of my male history teacher, so I had to hold my jacket up to my chest to keep things from being visible as we toured Colonial Williamsburg. Then we were going to get on the swinging pirate ship ride at Busch Gardens, and there was only room in the row for one of us, and a girl I wasn't really friends with let me have the seat. She sat in another row and afterwards told us that she had a man's hand on her thigh the whole time and was upset, but then kind of laughed it off. I've always felt badly about that, but as a shy, extremely insecure teen, I never said anything to her. I know it's not my fault, but almost 40 years later it still feels slightly weird. Anyway, bad field trip, and it rained the whole time.
Army Academy. I wanted to be a soldier, had a solid career path wherein I was going to nursing school first and then become an army medic. Plus side is if you enlist with a degree you immediately become a ranked officer. So yeah, get in, learn all about it, then they tell me I was too short to enlist. I stopped growing at 4'11", and minimum height requirement was 5'2" then. I cried on the way home. In 8th grade we went to this living history museum where everything was an American town in the 1800s. We literally had to pretend to be slaves escaping on the Underground Railroad while a crazy guy chased us with a rifle shooting blanks, and were saved by an old white Quaker couple. My school was almost entirely white, maybe 30 POC, 10 of which were maybe BIPOC, out of 300 in the class. I guess not a single person thought how poor taste this actually was. We all look back at it now like WTF. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and click the bell icon to be the first to watch our videos when we upload. Like, comment and share.